Yeah, on.
Two twins.
All right. Here we go.
Episode 0.
Episode 0, which I don't even know if that's a thing.
What comes before episode 0?
Well, episode 0.5.
That would be after. It would have to be episode -1.
Mm. Well, here we are doing math already, and welcome to Two Twins and an Album. This is I guess the best way to put this, kind of an intro episode. So for those of you that are, either checking us out for the first time, or if you're, still early in the game, but you just want to know who we are and why we're doing this, we kind of figured we'd tee it up. We'd tee it up that way. So we are two twins, I guess, is the part you probably already gathered.
We are
identical, in fact, and living in southeastern Michigan, and grew up playing music, loving music, obsessing about music, and spending a lot of time pontificating, wasting hours and hours that we'll never have back, discussing music. And we kind of figured, particularly in light of being home more and all these kinds of things, and all the podcasts we've been listening to and enjoying, that perhaps we should give it a go. And Two Twins and an Album was born.
It was birthed.
So that's the gist. And the idea is, and I'm Chris, and I'm the youngest twin. So maybe you should have introduced yourself first.
Yeah, it never quite goes in order of age when you're twins. You just kind of go when you go. So I'm Nubs. I am the older of the two. Five good minutes.
That's right. 5 minutes separated us. So I'm Chris. You may hear me referred to as Toph. Nubs, you may hear him referred to as Nick. We just kind of go with what we feel on that, as far as name designation goes.
That's right.
And we are, professional. We have jobs. We actually do have jobs, but our great love is playing music. We play music together. Actually, we do an acoustic covers thing. And we also are in a band called the Anders Orange that has some stuff out there if you're inclined to take a look, to check us out, as they say.
And these are the conversations that we have when we're not recording and not podcasting. So, this is just a little glimpse into the way that two twin brothers, equally passionate about music and equally opinionated about it, might spend an evening out having a couple of cocktails and discussing the beauty known as albums. Because that's really what this is about too. It's part of this is absolutely diving into the piece of work and the piece of art known as the album. And I think we both want to make sure that doesn't die. We're both dads of young kids, and we spend a lot of time around young musicians from some of the projects and things that we're involved with.
We're old. Essentially. Yeah. Essentially old.
And one of the things that I think is key is making sure that the whole idea of an album is not lost, and the album not as a collection of songs, but as a true piece of art. And this podcast will dive into, the wholeness of an album from top to bottom, a really comprehensive look, which should be a lot of fun because we're both passionate about albums. Both of our tastes and both of our musical upbringings were really based on the album. Even though we're kind of MTV kids and radio was big for us, it's not as much anymore. But buying the album, discovering the album, learning about the album is all, I mean, that's a huge part of our musical fabrics, if that's even a word.
Bravo. Well said. I concur on all fronts. And, the idea is to celebrate the album. We've kind of come up with a little bit of a rhyme and reason, to the show and to each episode, and something that'll kind of, I think kind of guide each episode and structure each episode a little bit. So what I'd expect in tuning in is, first of all, we're going to go back and forth each episode. So, I'm going to pick the album for episode 1, which hopefully you'll listen to shortly or already have. Nick will pick 2, and we'll go back and forth. And I think part of, what we're trying to bring to the table is a very anti-elite look at music. I mean, we're going to talk about everything. I don't think there's anything really that's off the table. Unless something's just completely awful, then we probably won't talk about it. But genres and decades and time periods, and our tastes are eclectic, I think is fair to say. So we plan to kind of deliver hopefully a lot of different things. Some things you'll be very familiar with, some maybe not as much, but the idea is to kind of start each show teeing up the album of that particular episode. And then just to kind of warm up, just to grease the skids, we're each going to give, in a segment we'll call Round and Round, we're each going to give 3 albums that are just kind of on the radar, that are on our turntable, that are in our players. New stuff, old stuff, everything in between, just to give you an idea of something that we're currently interested in or revisiting.
Which will be great. It'll give us a chance to share out what we're listening to currently, because probably most of the albums we pick to dive into will be things that are part of our history, right? I mean, I can't imagine either one of us will pick an album that's something that's not an important thing to us. And important means a lot of different things, right? But Round and Round will be great because it just gives us a chance to say, hey, here's what I'm listening to right now. And to your point, it could be a new thing that we're just getting into, or could be something we're rediscovering. So that'll be a fun segment.
That'll be loads of fun. And, we plan to stay pretty active, on Twitter and through social media, and certainly through email. If any of you have an album to get on our radar, or even something you want us to put an episode focus on, we don't just want to make it about stuff that has impacted us. We're also just as interested in giving something else a second look, or a first look, even if it's something you'd be interested in hearing us two dummies talk about. So,
and Toph, you mentioned an important thing. I want to reiterate: non-elitist, right? Like, I know there's podcasts out there that do similar things to what we're doing here, and in no way, shape, or form are we saying our taste is the best, or what's on my turntable is the thing that everyone should be listening to. It always cracks me up when you're having a music conversation with somebody, say, hey, what do you listen to? And they say, oh, everything, because part of me thinks, oh, everything, like, really? Like, we truly, I think, listen to such a huge variety of things. I mean, we really do. And not just listen to on YouTube or streaming platforms. Like, we have collections, and we dive into works from all decades and all genres, and we'll buy things for all sorts of different reasons in terms of our collections. And so that's really important. We want people to tune in and enjoy the conversations that we're having, and not feel in any way like we're trying to say like our taste is better than anyone else's taste or anything like that. That's what's amazing about music, is we all have really individual tastes, but diving into it, we hope that that's a unique experience through the podcast, is the way that we can dive into these albums and explore them.
I mean, I actually do think my taste is better than everyone else's, but no, I'm kidding. Great point. So, we'll kind of get into the album of the episode at that point. We're going to provide in a segment we call Nerdy Deets Done Dirt Cheap. the nerdy kind of background details on when the album came out and who produced it, and all the sort of background info and data around the album.
And not to toot our own horns here on episode 0, but Nerdy Deets Done Dirt Cheap might be the greatest name for a segment in the history of podcasts.
Yeah, we were just going originally with Nerdy Deets, and then we kind of said, let's expand on this.
It's pretty good. So,
and then we'll get into a segment called Wondrous Stories, which for those of you keeping track at home, that is a Yes reference. And part of what Nubs is going to bring to the table, which is always very exciting, for me, and hopefully it will be for you, is some of his prog interest, because he is a full-scale prog nerd, has been since age 12, when he was very wisely not only checking out and listening to, but truly understanding bands like Yes, Genesis, early Genesis, King Crimson, Rush, etc. And I thought he was, had horrible taste. I thought what are you listening to? What is this? This is ridiculous. And then, of course, I grew up, and now I get that he just had a gifted ear and was able to understand those things that musically it takes most people. Most 12-year-olds don't listen to prog.
Rockers, we develop very thick skin. Any other prog rockers out there know this. Almost from the earliest of age, and for me, it is legitimately 12 years old. You learn how to have people not understand the genre. It's one of the most maligned genres in the history of music. I mean, watch any documentary about prog rock, and they're going to tell you that there was a period of time when punk came along where it was like a dirty word, prog. So I'm well used to. First of all, I'm used to you always thinking everything I do is a little out there, but on this one, I'm very used to it.
Well, isn't it, who gets laid less than a bass player? It's a prog rocker.
Yeah. Yes.
Isn't that what they say?
I think that's what they say.
But yeah, so, Nick Nubs was listening to Steely Dan, when he was 12, and I would make fun of him. This is old man music. This is geezer music. And now I'm like, God, I wish I'd liked Steely Dan when I was 12, because they're obviously amazing. So Wondrous Stories will be kind of not just our personal, recollection and sort of discovery of the album, but also the context of that time. Because obviously part of this will be diving into, what things were like at that time. And some of the albums we talk about, we will remember the release date and getting in line to buy the CD in the tall, skinny box and all that. But also we're going to talk about plenty of albums that came before us. So that's kind of the idea of the Wonder Story section. Then we're going to drop the needle. We're going to put the needle on the record. And that's when we'll get into sort of track by track of the album. And we'll, pick apart and discuss all the different tracks within the albums and maybe even tracks from re-releases and reissues and remasters and those things that are often the case. And then we're going to talk about Did It Matter? Is sort of the second to last section, kind of the legacy of the album. Is it important? Why or why not? And then lastly, we're going to give kind of a rating. We're going to call that the final cut, which is a late Pink Floyd reference.
An album that I actually really like, and I don't think a whole lot of other people do. So it's a nice reference.
I love the album. It's not a particularly upbeat record.
Not the feel-good hit of the summer.
You don't really want to put that on your makeout list,
Yeah.
But it's quite it's a very emotional album. But what we're going to do during the final cut is we're basically going to rate the album. We're going to say on the turntable, in the collection, collecting dust, or in the for sale bin, which Nubs cleverly came up with those ratings, being a rather insane vinyl collector himself.
And one who has put many an album in the for sale bin. And I have some that are collecting dust, and a lot that would fall under the other two categories. So Yeah, it'll be a nice way to do kind of a final rating of how we see it.
Indeed. And then and that'll kind of wrap up the album, the episode album that we'll be kind of focusing on. We're going to close it out with something called What's in Your Head. And much like we gave you the 3 kind of albums on the radar at the beginning, we're going to give 3 songs. And while the spirit of the podcast is around albums, you know, there are plenty of dynamite songs out there that are on albums that aren't too good. And, you know, we also realize that, without sounding like old angry men, that in today's day and age, you know, gathering singles and making playlists and all those things that, you know, Nubs and I do as well, is kind of part of how a lot of people are taking in music. And that's perfectly okay. However, as long as people are taking it in, that's a good thing. So we did want to give at the end of each episode, you know, 3 songs that are kind of on our radar. And again, those could be new, those could be old, those could be everywhere in between.
It sounds like a rip-roaring good time had by all to me.
I think so. You know, look, you could either go to the fun park or you can listen to us. And I'd listen to us.
I don't think there's any question about that choice. You could listen to us on the way to the fun park, but
wow,
might just want to listen to us.
That might kill you. That's just so much excitement. And then, of course, we'll kind of wrap up each episode. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of what we're going for here on episode 0. We are going to launch episode 1 concurrently with this. So hopefully, once you've wrapped this up, you can go right to E1, and you'll probably be able to see what that is at the moment.
Looking forward to E1, and looking forward to everybody joining us for these conversations. It's going to be a blast.
Absolutely. Nubs, anything in closing?
No, I'm really looking forward to doing what we do normally, and in this case, just recording it and unleashing it to those who want to hear 2 twin brothers banter about their own music tastes.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Let's unleash the fury.
Unleash the fury. Unleash the fury. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap E0, and hopefully this kind of helped give you a little bit of an idea of who we are and what we're going for. But we will see you very soon for episode 1 on 2 twins and an album.
You got it. See you soon.
2 twins.